Shalom, Gabe Greenberg here, learning with you this week the commentary of the Netziv on the weekly Torah portion. This week, Parshat Shoftim, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 20. One of the more famous phrases in the entire Torah, Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof. Justice, justice you shall pursue, or you shall surely pursue justice. This phrase is often invoked to speak to the Torah's general orientation towards social justice or setting up a just or fair society. Here, the Netziv is going to pursue another interpretation of Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof, which is taken from the Talmud. In Masechet Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, page 32b, the Netziv says, quotes now from the Talmud, Bisanhedrin mefarshe, echad ladin ve'echad lipshara. The Talmud says, what do we do with this double language, tzedek, tzedek, justice, justice? That it refers to two different avenues where one can pursue litigation. One is in court, echad ladin, ve'echad lipshara, and one is through compromise. So the rabbis understand that if you have a problem and you want to sue for damages or take someone to court, you can take them to court, or you can try to settle out of court through what we might call today mediation. In mediation, both parties have to agree to having their case heard outside of the formal confines of the court system. It might mean that the exact letter of the law might not be followed to the T when you have mediation, but both parties submit themselves to it and they'll follow whatever comes out. It can be called mediation, it can be called compromise. The Netziv notes that in the Talmud, Rashi comments on this passage and says as follows, Tzedek pshara shacha lefi ra'ot einecha, that tzedek tirdof, you should pursue justice, means you should pursue the justice of the compromise that was made. Velo tirdof et ha'echad yoter mechavero, and you should not pursue one avenue of justice over a second avenue of justice, which seems to mean that Rashi is saying if you go to mediation and you are given a ruling that you don't like, you shouldn't say, well, now I want to take you to court because I didn't like what the ruling was for me. Okay, so that's what Rashi says. The Netziv comments now on what Rashi says. U'lichora eino muvan. I don't understand what Rashi is saying. Ha, ein kofin et balei din lasot pshara. Why? Because we never force the litigants to go into mediation in the first place. They have to choose to take it upon themselves. And once they've done that, then presumably they think that the judges or whoever's running the mediation are fair and fair-minded, and whatever the ruling will be, whatever the compromise will be, should be mutually acceptable to some degree. So the Netziv says, what's Rashi talking about? Why would a person, of course a person can't try to then go back to court after mediation. Now in America, they might be able to do that, but according to the rabbinic system, they would not be able to do that. So the Netziv says, maybe the answer to Rashi's claim, Rashi's comment, is later in the same Talmudic passage. Because later on in the passage, it goes on to say, ha ketzad, which means, what is an example, or what does it look like to say that sometimes you're going to have to pursue justice in a court, and sometimes you're going to have to pursue justice through compromise. And now it gives examples, two major examples. Here is the example. Shtei sfinot ovrot benahar upagu ze bezeh. There were two ships, two boats, going in the same shipping canal, and they're about to hit each other. Echat te'una ve'echat she'ena te'una. Tidacheh she'ena te'una mipnei te'una. In a case where one of them has cargo and the other does not have cargo, then the rule is the one that has cargo is allowed to take priority, and the one that does not have cargo must stop, move aside, and wait for the other to pass, even though they will lose time in their journey, the one that does not have cargo. So now the Netziv says, there's a sort of a problem, it seems, here in the text. Why would the Gemara use the term ha-ketzad? What does this mean? What does this look like to introduce this passage? Because v'chi lo yadanu ma'u pshara, don't we know what compromise means? Ella mishum de lo mishkachat azhara zu ella b'makom shekofin lasot pshara. And now the Netziv gets to the crux of what he thinks our mitzvah of Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof means, justice you should pursue. He says, you only find it applicable in a case where the two parties are actually forced to accept compromise. They're forced into a position of compromise. Remember earlier he said, when commenting on Rashi's commentary, he said, certainly people are never forced into compromise. They could choose to go into mediation or go into court. But now the Netziv is saying, Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof, justice you shall pursue. When our Gemara says it means sometimes there's going to be justice in the court, but sometimes there's going to be justice in mediation or in compromise. He says this mitzvah is only applicable when the parties were forced into a situation of compromise, like in the case of ships that are about to hit each other. There's no time for them to go to court. They just have to work it out. That's a situation of compromise. Ubezeh ha'ofen necha azharat tzedek tzedek tirdof. And in this situation, we say you have to find the justice and submit yourself to the justice of compromise. And then the pinnacle, the crux of the case that the Gemara then says is in a case where both boats are unloaded with cargo. Because in that case, you don't have this rule that says, well, the one with cargo should go first. So the Gemara concludes by saying, in a case where both boats do not have cargo, hatel pshara benehen umalo tzchar zulazo. They must arrange a compromise between them and let one boat compensate the other. So in that case, says the Netziv, al pi omek hadin, if that had gone to court and we'd gone according to the letter of the law, ein lanu b'mala kofet she'ena te'una shetelech li'ibud. There's nothing according to strict justice that would say whatever boat we're going to make late and go second, there was no reason, according to strict justice, that we choose the second rather than the first. Aval ein ze mishpat yashar. This is not strict justice. Al kain kofin la'asot pshara. Rather, we forced the second boat into a case of compromise. Yes, they're going to be compensated. That's what the compromise is. The first boat has to pay the second boat because they're making them late. But this is a case, says the Netziv, where the litigants were forced into a position of compromise. There was no time to take it to court. This was not a case of strict justice. It was forced upon them. And he says that is what the context of our mitzvah, this famous mitzvah, which is usually applied very broadly. And then Netziv says, no, really, it's only, its application is for a very narrow case or set of cases where there's no time to go to court, and even if we were to go to court, we couldn't possibly adjudicate this case according to the strict letter of the law, and rather we're forced into a case of compromise, and it's then, and that now Rashi's comments make sense. Lo tirdof etach echad yoter mechavero. Don't say, oh, well, had we gone to court, I would have gotten a better ruling. No, you have to accept that this was a case of a necessary compromise, and even though it didn't work out for you, you have to accept the justice of the case. So a very interesting Netziv, which is really greatly limits what we normally understand in common Jewish parlance, Tzedek Tzedek Tirdof, to be about. Here, it's where both sides of the argument are forced to accept a case of compromise and mediation, and even if it doesn't work out for you, and there was no reason, according to the strict letter of the law, for it to work out, for your ruling to be like this, you have to accept it and understand that there is tzedek, there is justice and righteousness in this case as well. Very interesting from the Netziv. As always, a pleasure learning with you. More to come next week.